Hi everyone, this is Real World Audio, and this episode is tied to the building of the Darling amplifier. It's a single-ended amplifier with extremely low power output, but it applies not just to this build but every other amplifier. That when you want to step up on your audio journey and you reach the point that you want to have a deeper experience, to have a system that can engage you musically much better, and sooner or later you will decide to pull the trigger and go for using silver in your audio path. I have tons of videos in the past talking about silver, and right now I'm going to show you a little bit of silver. So here you go in my interconnects. These are DIY interconnects. Of course they are made of silver, and then silver binding post for the loudspeaker, silver binding post in the crossover, and silver as power cord. So there in the power cord you see silver running. So as you use more and more silver in your amplifier, you will have a much better low level resolution capacity than you had before. And that's because silver is much more capable of carrying extremely low level signals and high frequency signals. And also what people do not tell you is that silver, here's my pool of gauge 32 silver wire. It is extremely thin, and this pool was 3 ounces of silver, and it's almost 1,000 feet long, so it's like 300 meters long, this little spool of silver in here. But what people do not tell you is that silver generally does not have directivity. So when you have a piece of copper cable, like here's like the copper wire at the end of your capacitor, or you can have like the copper wire as your transformer leads in your amp, all the copper wire has directivity. So if you take that wire, change its orientation, the sound you get from it will be different. And I cannot understate this fact. If you use your copper in a different direction, you will impact the sound with that. And that's why when you build an amp, if you work in stereo, then for the 2 channels, use the same orientation of the wires. If not, then it will be quite a bit of step down for your amplifier from the sound quality where it's capable of operating that. But this episode comes with a warning, and that's why I have the red tape here, red as warning. So please do heed my warning, and this is an explicit warning, and it's of the highest magnitude possible. If you go for silver, like gauge 32 fine silver for your internal wiring, or here are the silver tubes for the binding posts. If you use more and more silver in your audio, you are going to hear more and more what the rest of your equipment is doing. And if they are not at the top of their game, you will suffer hell. You will descend to the bottom of the 9th level of hell and suffer, and you will say, silver sucks, I'm never again trying out silver. And that's not because of silver, that is because the rest of the system have critical problems in them. And why no one ever told you about them? Because at that level where most of us work with audio gear and use them, you never ever run into these problems because they are hidden by the problems that copper represents. And as I said, the difference between silver and copper is very low level signal handling and the handling of high frequencies. And when you go for more silver, then you will hear way more what's happening in the high frequency range. And for example, if your system, if your CD or source or your preamplifier or loudspeaker was at the first place overemphasizing high frequencies, now for the first time you are going to notice it. And if it's something ugly, then it will be something really ugly. And then what I recommend for you is do not blame the silver, do not start modifying the silver, but start hunting down what is the problem maker. So this is an extremely crucial advice. And I would say that in the beginning, of course, I would say all of us have systems which have really big problems elsewhere in the chain. If you build your baby darling with all silver parts, which means like even the binding posts are silver, all the internal wiring is silver, then probably that will make you a very rude awakening. You will not want to switch on that amplifier very frequently. What I can recommend at first is that you wire your filaments, and with the copper you use regular binding posts like these vampire binding posts. They are pretty cheap, and just wire the signal section with silver. Just introduce a little bit of silver at first, and then this will give you a little bit of balanced scenario where it will not really expose ruthlessly the weaknesses of your system, just show you a little bit more of the extra potential, just highlight more gently what weaknesses you have. You will probably also need to work on the crossover of your loudspeaker. If you have only the signal in silver, I would say then you will get by without touching your crossover. If you go all silver, you will have to work on your loudspeaker's crossover to make it I would say not just enjoyable but listenable at all. But if you do that, it's not a chore or something that you have to do. When you make sure that the rest of your system can play game, and it's at that level where this amplifier is, you will be amazed out of your mind, because you will hear sound that probably you never heard and you never even imagined it can exist. And it will not be a sound that is almost as good as real life. No, it's a sound that will give you, I would say, 100 times deeper engagement than anything you heard in real live concerts. And yes, that sort of thing is real. It is possible. You can get there. And if you want a very complicated system, I guarantee you cannot do it. But if you start building from a simple system like a Darling amp and work around from that, it is attainable for all of us to do that system. If you want to do it in a complex way, then you need the ingenuity and experience of a professional audiophile who is a genius himself. Like there are some of you like that. For example, Lou, he's an audio professional like that. But there's maybe less than 10 Lou's in the world. I can tell you guys that. This is not something that you just normally run across. It does not happen everywhere. But I'm showing you a path that, coming from simplicity, coming from modest expectations, you can build towards that level. And even on a budget, really high level music enjoyment experience is a reality. So thank you for tuning in, and please think about that. I would say when you go for silver wiring, the binding post, changing the binding post to silver, that is the point of no return. If you do that and your rest of the system is not there, then that will tip you over the brink. So do this at the last part of your journey. In the beginning, just build your baby darling with some regular copper binding post. You can use these cheap guys, the vampire connectors, like $1 or $2 per pair, or you can buy something better, but I would not recommend wasting more money on them, because your next step of your audio journey will be to build your speakers properly or tweak them properly, get your signal source in order, and then you can go for the silver connectors. So thank you for tuning in. I really hope that you can use this advice and you will use my advice. Please like, subscribe, build. Bye bye.